Thank you for staying glued to QTV. Time now for the news. The headlines. 3 Mopani copper miners have died in a fire that occurred at Mindola North Shaft in Kitwe on Thursday. The Katete Magistrate Court has convicted a local court magistrate and a messenger at Kawaza Ode Local Court in Katete for corruption. Here now is the news in detail. 3 Mopani copper miners have died in a fire that occurred at Mindola North Shaft in Kitwe on Thursday. The incident happened after a loader caught fire underground, and Mopani Copper Mines is working with the Mine Safety Department and other relevant authorities to inform the next of kin of the deceased employees and to investigate the accident. All operations at Mindola North have been suspended until further notice. The mine's management has since expressed its deepest condolences to the mining families of the 3 employees. The management also pledged to provide them with the necessary support during this difficult time. This is according to a statement made available to Q News. Transparency International Zambia TIZ has questioned President Edgar Lungu's ability to truly fight corruption in his government. The TIZ is disappointed that President Lungu has refused to fire Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela, who on Wednesday was arrested for corruption. Executive Director Wesley Chibamba says his organization is expected Edgar Lungu to demonstrate his resolve to fight corruption by letting go of all elements that are deemed corrupt in his administration. Mr. Chibamba says given that President Lungu has however not fired Mr. Chitotela, the TIZ is now suspicious that State House could be involved in the minister's allegation or alleged corruption. He has told QTV News that his organization has observed that corrupt allegations leveled against Mr. Chitotela are quite humongous for him to continue holding onto his ministerial position. Mr. Chibamba has wondered how Mr. Chitotela will even be able to answer to corruption allegations in court when he is still cabinet minister. And Governance, Elections, Advocacy, Research Gears Initiative has advised Mr. Chitotela to resign on his own in view of the corruption allegations leveled against him. Executive Director McDonald Chipenzi has urged Mr. Chitotela to realize that he will still be fired if he is found guilty of corruption. Mr. Chipenzi thinks that this is what President Lungu may have meant on Thursday when he argued that Mr. Chitotela is innocent until proven guilty in defiance to cause that he fires him. In a walk-in interview with QTV News, Mr. Chipenzi says this is why his organization is encouraging Mr. Chitotela to find honor in resigning on his own from his ministerial position. Mr. Chipenzi is also of the view that President Lungu is being unfair to Mr. Chitotela to keeping him in his government position when he already knows that he may fire him at some point. He states that Gears has in fact been left to wonder whether indeed President Lungu is genuinely fighting corruption in his government.
And we wonder whether President Lungu genuinely is fighting corruption. If truly he is fighting corruption, he should have, by today, fired Ronald Chitotela. I mean, when you fire somebody, all you are trying to say is that go and clean yourself. After you are clean, we will be able to reconsider. Simple and straightforward. But how is even Ronald Chitotela himself going to be free to address people about corruption? How is he going to be, unless he's not ashamed? But if there's that social shame in him, definitely he will not be one of his ambassadors, President Lungu's ambassadors, in fighting corruption. Because he will be moving with a guilt conscience. People will always say, oh, this is a person who was arrested for corruption. Okay? So, he's actually putting the man in the corner. But at the same time, I think the statement that the president has made should ring some bell in Honorable Chitotela's mind. What basically he's telling Chitotela is that, can you resign on your own? Resign on your own, otherwise I'll fire you at some point when you are found guilty. That is what is he saying. What he's saying is he's not guilty until he's innocent until he's found guilty. So when the day you will be found guilty, you'll be fired. Now imagine to be fired because you have been found guilty. The honorable thing that Honorable Stotela can do at the moment is to resign on his own, since his boss says, I will only fire you when you are found guilty. Because that would be more embarrassing than now.
But the ruling PF has defended President Edgar Lungu's decision not to fire Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Stotela, who has been charged with 2 counts of corruption. PF Media Director Sandy Chanda says his party agrees with President Lungu that Mr. Stotela is innocent until proven guilty. Mr. Chanda states that the Zambian constitution does in fact guarantee every citizen equal protection under the law. He has told QTV News that this is what most people calling for the dismissal of Mr. Stotela have not put into consideration.
The Constitution of Zambia guarantees to every person equal protection under the law. Consequently, under the presumption of innocence, Honorable Stotela is considered innocent until proven guilty. And this is expressed under our law, that the burden of proof is on the one who declares and not one who denies. It is a legal principle. Justice cannot be for one side alone, it must be for both. However, people that have myopic minds and tunnel vision and who have vested interests and anti-government agendas, like the UPND leader, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, may not see beyond their interests. There is a lot to be taken into account in the administration of justice. Tragically, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema knows very little about governance. Later on, the administration of justice, as his checkered intra-party record shows.
The Katete Magistrate Court has convicted a local court magistrate and a messenger at Kawaza Old Local Court in Katete for corruption. Emmanuel Mvula, 47, a local court magistrate of house number D45, Magazine Compound, Chipata, and Mavuto Piri, 38, a court messenger of Kazaria Compound, Katete, have each been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment with hard labor. Particulars of the offense are that on dates unknown between the 1st of April 2017 and 24th April 2017 in Katete district, Mvula and Piri, being public officers working in the judiciary as presiding local court magistrate and messenger for Kawaza Old Local Court respectively, corruptly solicited and received 1,200 kwacha cash gratification from Kefas Piri as an inducement or reward for themselves to facilitate a favorable ruling in the case of child maintenance and the use of insulting language, which Kefas Piri was facing under the same court, a matter or transaction that concerned the local court, a public body. The duo arrested by the Anti-Corruption Commission in April 2017 and charged with 1 count of corrupt practices by or with public officers contrary to Section 19(1) as read with Section 41 of the Anti-Corruption Act No. 3 of 2012. Government and its partners have launched a $137 million strengthening climate resilience on agricultural livelihoods in agro-ecological region 1 and 2 project. The 7-year project runs from 2018 to 2017, is aimed at increasing the resilience of smallholder farmers in view of the climate change and variability, and will benefit 3 million households in 16 districts. Speaking during the launch, Minister of Agriculture Michael Katambo observed that climate change has become a serious challenge to sustainable development. Mr. Katambo says climate change effects are exerting considerable stress on the country's vulnerable sectors such as agriculture and infrastructure. He states that government is however committed to ensuring that the country adapts to effects of climate change.
This project will enhance resilience of vulnerable populations, especially women and the youth, in the 18 targeted districts. At full implementation, a total of 157,000 farm households will have benefited from the project. The beneficiaries will be implementing climate-resilient technologies such as conservation agriculture, agroforestry, and other climate change adaptation and mitigation practices. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, my statement, I wish to commend our cooperating partners for implementing government efforts in combating the negative effects of climate change. The Zambian government acknowledges and appreciates your valuable assistance to mitigate the negative effects of climate change. It is now my singular honor and privilege to officially launched the Scala project for regions 1 and 2 in Zambia.
Speaking at the same event, United Nations Resident Coordinator Janet Rogan said the launched project is key in implementing the aspirations of Zambia's 7th National Development Plan.
Globally, the UN system is undergoing a massive and fundamental reform in line with Sustainable Development Agenda 2030 and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. This reform is to ensure that all the funds and agencies of the UN system, including the 3 who are here today, FAO, WFP and UNDP, are working together, delivering as one, in the best possible way, to do 3 things. First, to support the member states of the United Nations in their development aspirations. Second, to provide humanitarian services where they are needed in response to crisis. And third, to support member states as they restore peace and security for their people in times of crisis or conflict. As UN Resident Coordinator, it is my job to coordinate and represent all the UN agencies working in Zambia, and I'm delighted to join you in that capacity today to support the efforts of 3 of the UN agencies that you see here as they work together with government counterparts in the Water Resources Management Authority, WARMA, in the Zambia Meteorological Department, in the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of National Development Planning in particular, in order to strengthen Zambian farmers' ability to withstand and overcome the effects of climate change in the 2 driest agroecological zones of Zambia. These zones cover Western, Southern, Muchinga, Eastern and Lusaka province, and that is exactly where this project will work.
And United Nations Development Programme Deputy Country Director Sergio Vauden has appealed to implementers of the project to put to good use the resources meant to enhance food security of smallholder farmers.
We must apply the human and financial resources to combat climate changes and build resilience for the communities. It is all well understood, $1 invested in resilience building can save more than $7 that would be needed to undertake a disaster and risk management later on. Second, if climate change is not addressed, we risk losing the gains that we have made on the economic front, and these would be through channeling funds that should have been invested in development to undertaking humanitarian operation. It is estimated by a report that Zambia is losing $4 billion to the effect of climate change. We therefore need to mainstream climate change into all plans and all sectors through national adaptation planning processes. Opportunities remain for countries to access national adaptation plan preparation from the GCF. Third and least, Zambia is amongst the countries that successfully apply for and access GCF funding for the project to be launched today. We need to use effective and efficient mechanisms to implement the project. GCF Independent Evaluation Unit has selected this project as one of they will use to learn lessons and improve design and inform approval requirement by the board.
The Drug Enforcement Commission, DEC in Lusaka, has arrested a businessman for money laundering activities involving over 600,000 kwacha. Joseph Banda, 28, a businessman of house number 412 Silverest Gardens in Lusaka, has been arrested for forgery, uttering false documents, obtaining goods by false pretenses, and money laundering contrary to the laws of Zambia. Particulars of the offense are that Joseph Banda on dates unknown, but between 1st August 2018 and 9th January 2019, jointly and whilst acting together with other persons unknown with intent to defraud, did forge a letter purporting to have been written by the Attorney General and uttered it to the Managing Director of Chem Pharmacy Limited for the offer of supply of ARVs amounting to $80 million when in fact not. The suspect further forged a letter addressed to the Republican President, purportedly written by the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Emmanuel Mulenga Pamo, on the status of the supply of cancer treatment drugs and retroviral drugs by the Chem Pharmacy Limited when in fact not. The suspect also forged a letter purportedly by the Ministry of Finance Permanent Secretary to Chem Pharmacy Limited and fraudulently obtained 610,000 kwacha by falsely purporting that it was part of a bank guarantee for the supply of ARVs to the Zambian government, when in fact not. The suspect has been released on police bond and will appear in court soon. Meanwhile, the commission in Lusaka has arrested a 29-year-old businesswoman identified as Tasha Nkweto of Garden House area for possession, trafficking, importing and exporting various quantities of cocaine and heroin. The contraband, which was concealed in art curios, was intercepted in an operation conducted at a named courier company en route to Europe. This is contained in a statement to Q News by DEC Public Relations Officer Teresa Katongo.
The suspect also forged a letter purporting that it was written by the Ministry of Finance Permanent Secretary to Chem Pharmacy Limited and fraudulently obtained 610,000 kwacha by falsely purporting that it was part of a bank guarantee for the supply of ARVs to the Zambian government, when in fact not. The suspect has been released on police bond and will appear in court soon. Meanwhile, we have also in Lusaka arrested a 29-year-old businesswoman by the name of Tasha Nkweto of Garden House area for possession, trafficking, importing and exporting various quantities of cocaine and heroin. The contraband was concealed in art curios, intercepted in an operation conducted at a named courier company en route to Europe. The female suspect is currently in police custody and is expected to appear in court soon.
Vice President Unangawina has outlined President Edgar Lungu's vision of empowering rural communities with a view of reducing poverty and hunger. Mrs. Wina says President Lungu's vision is to further improve nutritional levels, which are in conformity with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of ending poverty by empowering rural communities. She says Zambia recognizes agriculture as the mainstay of the economy. Mrs. Wina states that Zambia, however, stands ready to benchmark from India in the area of technology, especially solar water pumping solutions. First Secretary, Press and Tourism at the Zambian Mission in New Delhi, India, Bangwe Navile, has more in this report.
The SHACT is India's leading solar-powered water pump manufacturer, manufacturing digitalized water pumps that can be controlled on phone from any part of the world. The technology has been put in place in response to India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who wants to digitalize all services in the Asian subcontinent. Vice President Nongewina, flanked by Zambia's High Commissioner to India Judith Kapijimpanga, met SHACT Pumps, which has manufacturing plants and demo agricultural fields in the outskirts of Indore, a city in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh.
Solar is the future, which is free, available in abundance.
Our government is very anxious to ensure that the Zambian communities, the Zambian people are lifted out of poverty. And we have realized that agriculture will be the major mainstay.
Right.
And they also do a lot with solar pumps, which would be good for our village women.
Water utilities in Zambia can use the technology to provide solar water pumping solutions in view of the energy deficit that equally affects water supply. Bangwe Navile, Mumbai, India.
Public health expert Big Banda has warned of multiple litigations of over 40 organizations that are infringing the copyright of his innovation, the Safe Motherhood Action Group, SMUGS. Dr. Banda says he has now instructed his lawyers to visit all organizations in the country that are using SMUGS without his expression or express permission. In an interview with QTV News, Dr. Banda says he has opted to take legal action because all organizations using SMUGS have ignored the legal notice published by his lawyers. Dr. Banda states that the challenge he is, however, facing is the copyright of his innovation also being infringed upon by the custodian of the copyright law. He notes that his lawyers are, however, engaging with government over the issue.
So it becomes a very unique, legal battle where you find that the custodians of the law, the custodians of copyright, are the ones who happen to be the infringers. But I think for 2019 will be more on action, with our lawyers. We are also visiting all those that we have already, taken note of, and my lawyers have them, but we've not visited them because the people who are infringing smugs are more than 40. So I'm aware, and my lawyers are aware about a lot of other organizations that have safe motherhood action group in their programs, but they are actually not responding to the legal notice that our lawyers have given. So we would like to warn them and would like to appeal to them that we are aware that they are implementing an illegal copyright property, which is my property, and this year we are taking legal actions. We are aware that the Ministry of Health are actually engaging and are discussing with our lawyers. But we want to warn those who have decided to be mute whilst they continue to implement the Safe Motherhood Action Group's model without my express permission.
The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, says the cost of living for a family of 5 in Lusaka declined by 29 kwacha from 5,424 kwacha in December 2018 to 5,395 kwacha in January 2019. JCTR Social and Economic Development Program Officer Chandapo Chileshe says the January 2019 basic need basket for a family of 5 in Lusaka stood at 5,395 kwacha. Mr. Chileshe says the most significant changes were noted in tea bags, which decreased by 12 kwacha from 85 kwacha to 73 kwacha, while charcoal reduced by 5 kwacha from 138 kwacha to 133 kwacha per 90 kg bag. He has told QTV News that prices for commodities such as vegetables dropped due to seasonal factors. Mr. Chileshe notes that vegetables decreased by 3 kwacha from 9 kwacha to 6 kwacha per kg, while the cost of fish and carpenter increased because of the current 3-month fish ban.
Further look at the electricity costs for each month. Households are incurring a cost of about 290 per month, and water bills are around 190 per month. Beyond that, households are incurring other costs that involve transport costs, education costs, and health costs. So this simply tells us that living in Lusaka is has become very expensive for most households and is negatively impacting on the most vulnerable, who are finding it very challenging to have access to the basic requirements of life. So as JCTR, we are urging government to ensure that job opportunities are created for the majority, especially the youth who have no employment. We also urge that the e-voucher system should be fully embraced and expanded in our country. By embracing, we mean inputs should be received on time. The farmers should receive their inputs on time so that they can use the inputs for farming. Beyond that, expansion. By expansion, we want to see that the agriculture system is fully diversified, because if we fully embrace the e-voucher system, it goes beyond farming. It also looks at livestock farming. It also looks at fish farming. So fully embracing and expanding this e-voucher system will help to fully diversify our economy or the agriculture system. And lastly, we urge that urban farming should be fully encouraged in our country, especially that we have not been seeing much of this. Most urban areas refrain from farming, but we are urging that this should be fully encouraged so that it can help families to have sufficient basic items in their households.
Our government is confident that donors who have suspended their support to the education sector will resume their support to the sector. General Education Permanent Secretary Jobix Kalumba says government intends to engage with all donors who have withdrawn their support to the education sector. Dr. Kalumba says he is certain that the donors will recognize the need to support learners in schools and resume their cooperation with the Zambian government. He has since appealed to donors to come on board and continue supporting the country's education system.
And I'm sure the donors are also very much cognizant of this fact that we have to support the learner down there. This matter is of great concern to our government, and we are going to work with all the donors in this country in order for us
to put a smile on our children in our various schools. It's my appeal and prayer at the same time to the donors that come on board and continue supporting the system in the same way as you've been doing. We're doing everything possible to make amendments.
The Board of Directors of Zambia Airways 2014 Limited has appointed Brooke Endasho Abebe as the Chief Executive Officer of the yet-to-be-launched airline. The decision was arrived at the inaugural board meeting held on Thursday, the 7th of February, where decisions relating to the commencement of the airline was also discussed. Mr. Abebe has 24 years of experience in the aviation industry and is currently Regional Director Sales and Services, Southern African Region for Ethiopian Airlines. And Zambia Airlines Board Acting Chairperson Bonaventure Mtale says Mr. Abebe's appointment was made in accordance with the shareholders' agreement between the Industrial Development Corporation IDC and Ethiopia Airlines ET, which provides that the first CEO would be nominated by ET and that IDC would nominate the subsequent CEO. Mr. Mtale has also further disclosed that the board has directed that Mr. Abebe to target commencement of operations of the airline for the third quarter of 2019. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News. The Zambia Youth in the Fight Against Corruption, ZIAFAC, says the arrest of Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela is a clear demonstration of President Edgar Lungu's commitment towards allowing institutions of governance to operate independently. ZIAFAC Executive Director Maurice Malambo says the arrest of Mr. Chitotela also dispels assertions by stakeholders and politicians who have been claiming that law enforcement agencies are being used to target political opponents. Mr. Malambo has also commended Mr. Chitotela for exhibiting maturity and calmness in the face of his arrest.
We do commend the conduct of Honorable Chitotela to have fully cooperated with the law enforcement agencies during the investigations by the ACC, not until his subsequent arrest. Honorable Chitotela has remained calm and cooperative in view of this development, which is in public domain. We say so in comparison to other notable political figures. You may recall during the investigations of the then Secretary General for the Patriotic Front and the Minister of Justice, Honorable Winter Kabimba, he did not conduct himself in a manner that was reflective of a leader of as Minister of Justice and also Secretary General of the ruling party. And also you may recall the way GBM behaved during investigations to do with some corruption allegations when he was Minister of Defense.
Lusaka Mayor Mal Sampa says government is committed to ensuring that employment and wealth creation are part of the developmental process of Zambia. And Mr. Sampa has thanked the enterprises for implementing government efforts to invest in the local retail industry. Mr. Sampa was speaking during the Choppies Fade Bonanza draw in Lusaka.
My dream as mayor is one day to see the people of Lusaka, business investors, they also open up business ventures in Botswana and in South Africa and anywhere in SADC. So I call all the young entrepreneurs in Zambia to look at Choppies and see that it was done by someone from Botswana. We need to support them, but also we need to focus and see that we don't just think we'll do business in Lusaka. You have to look outside Lusaka and invest outside Zambia. I call upon the youths of Lusaka not to just drink Glenfiddich and think that they have made it. No. Invest and invest and invest big. In this regard, I wish to call upon cooperating partners and other stakeholders to supplement government's effort by investing in Zambia. Currently, Choppies has 6 stores in Lusaka.
Speaking at the same draw, Choppies Operations Director Jyotish Kaniradan expressed gratitude for the support his supermarket has been receiving from the locals. During the draw, Choppies gave out vehicles and consolation prizes to its customers.
And this is a very big promotion which we are doing in Zambia. We started this promotion from the month of October, first week onwards, till January. And many thanks for all the customers who have supported in this initiative, as well as the principals and the manufacturers. And we got many of the suppliers, local manufacturers who have supported us in this birthday promotions like Gadbro International, Trade Kings, Zambian Breweries, and Varun Beverages, Varun Foods, and Unilever, many of them. And they have supported, as you can see, they have branded the vehicles. Their support was very immense in this initiative. And today is that the day for the lucky draw. We'll be doing the lucky draw in province-wise so that we should be fair to all the customers who had been participating in this competition. We'll do a separate lot for Chipata, that is Eastern Province. Lusaka region will be doing it separately. We'll do one for Southern Province. We'll do one for Northwestern Province. And we had opened a brand new hyper store. That's our first hyper store in Zambia.
Lusaka Central Member of Parliament Margaret Manakatwe has donated a total of 27,000 school exercise books and 2,500 textbooks to 24 schools located in her constituency. And Mrs. Manakatwe, who is also Minister of Finance, on Friday took time to visit the schools where she made the donation and familiarize herself with some of the challenges the schools are faced with. Addressing the pupils at Bauleni, Prince Takamado, Nyumbayanga Primary Schools and Nyumbayanga Secondary School, among other schools she visited, Mrs. Manakatwe has urged the pupils to be hardworking and discover themselves.
I want to stress how serious it is to study, to work hard, to be focused, and to find within yourself what it is that you want to be when you grow up.
I am here to support you. This headmistress has not even asked for one thing. That means vonse viliko vonse kuno. Is that? Vonse viliko.
Nangena primary school muja, grade 5 in Najumpa. Nangena secondary school muja, form 2 ni Najumpa. Chifuka chachani? Kuverenga. Kuswata. So what I want you to always remember, that when you study hard, when you read hard, if you are focused on your schoolwork, you will go far. Pamene hapa, my future teachers varipo, my future doctors varipo, my future scientists varipo.
Meanwhile, both pupils and management at the schools visited have expressed gratitude for Mrs. Manakatwe for her gesture.
We have a number of challenges, madam, and just to highlight a few, as you were entering, you saw how bad our road is. We'll be very grateful if at all you may just react to what you saw, madam. Sometimes it's quite a danger even to our pupils. When they are running, they are late.
The other challenge is the road, as you saw when you were driving in. We need your urgent assistance, madam. Apart from the roads, the school has an open space outside the fence. We kindly ask your office if it could be turned into a school ground for our physical education, as you know that all work and no play makes a dull, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
This gesture that you have done, Honorable Minister, will go long way and will surely help us to learn effectively in mathematics, integrated science, English language, and social studies.
Well, that's all we had for you in the news. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout. But before I take a run, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. 3 Mopani copper miners have died in a fire that occurred at Mindola North Shaft in Kitwe on Thursday. The Katete Magistrate Court has convicted a local court magistrate and a messenger at Kawaza Old Local Court in Katete for corruption. That's it. Bye-bye. God bless and continue watching QTV. Experience Home.